When I came up with this Crochet Truth series, I thought maybe I had enough for one video or maybe even 2 videos if I stretched it. I definitely did not expect us to get to a part 3. But then I started reading through your comments. Thousands of crocheters shared their own stories, little confessions, funny habits, and those moments that made me stop and think, wait, you do that too? It turned out that we're all more alike than we realized. Whether you've been crocheting for 6 months or 16 years, there are just certain experiences that seem to come with picking up a hook and a skein of yarn. Now, some of these crochet truths will make you laugh because you live them. A few of them might hit a little too close to home, and at least one of them might make you rethink your next project you add to your queue. Actually, I'm willing to bet you that you won't make it through this video without at least pausing once and saying, yep, that's me. And since this is part 3, I think we can skip the formal introductions. If you've watched the first 2 videos, welcome back. And if you've somehow just started here on part 3, first of all, I'm so glad you're here. But you might want to go back and watch the others when you're done, because apparently there's a lot for us to unpack as crocheters. One of my favorite things about crochet is that your style doesn't stay the same forever. Every crocheter starts somewhere, but very few of us stay there. Maybe you fell in love with colorful blankets, maybe you only wanted to make amigurumi, maybe your stash is filled with colorful acrylic yarn because that's what fit your budget or what your local craft store carried at the moment. Or maybe you only made wearables because that's what caught your attention on Pinterest or YouTube. Wherever you started, chances are crochet looks a little bit different today. At least I know mine does. When I first learned to crochet, I followed patterns exactly as they were written. If I wanted a cardigan, I'd search pattern after pattern until I found one that matched the exact picture in my head. And if a pattern wasn't exactly what I wanted, I'd just keep looking. I treated every single pattern like a set of rules that could not be changed. Then one day, I had a realization. I have free will. If I want that full-length cardigan to be cropped, I can crop it. If I want to add stripes to a solid colored blanket, I can do that. If I don't like the suggested yarn color, I can pick something completely different. If I want to swap the sleeves, change the border, or make a project a little larger or longer or shorter, there are no crochet police around the corner that are about to stop me. That little shift completely changed the way that I looked at crochet. Now I see patterns as starting points instead of finish lines. They're full of great ideas, but they're also meant to work with your style, your yarn, and your vision. And might I add, your budget. Sometimes your crochet style changes because your skills improve, sometimes your taste changes, sometimes your budget changes, and sometimes you simply discover what makes you excited to pick up your hook again. You might even look at something you made 5 years ago and think, why did I choose those colors? Or I can't believe that I used that yarn. And you know what? That's actually a good thing. It means that you're growing as a crocheter. Every project teaches you something, even if it's simply what you don't want to make again. I'd love to know though, if you compared your projects to when you first started crocheting to what you're making now, what changed the most? Did your colors change, the type of projects change, the yarn you buy, or maybe even your patience? Let me know in the comments below. Let's talk about yarn stash. You know the feeling. You walk into a craft store just to look, and somehow 20 minutes later, you've touched every single skein on the shelf. You're squeezing them, checking the colors under different lights, reading the labels, and before you know it, one skein turns into 5. Or maybe you're shopping online and you see that new yarn collection, convince yourself that it's exactly what your stash has been missing, place the order, and spend the next few days refreshing the tracking package like you're waiting on a long-lost friend to arrive. The package shows up, you admire the yarn, you pet the yarn, you organize the yarn. Then it quietly takes up permanent residence in your stash. I think sometimes we're collecting possibilities more than we're actually collecting projects. Every skein represents an idea. A sweater you might make someday, a blanket you've been dreaming about, the perfect shawl that you've saved on your Pinterest board for the last 2 years. Now, I do have a confession. This one doesn't really describe me. I know I might be one of the oddballs in the crochet community, but I almost always buy yarn with a specific project in mind. Maybe it's the engineer in me, but having yarn with absolutely no purpose kind of makes my brain itch a little bit. I need a plan. I like knowing that this yarn is for that cardigan, or these colors are going to be this blanket. Now that doesn't mean I never fall in love with a beautiful yarn. I absolutely do. Sometimes I see a colorway that catches my eye and immediately start searching for crochet patterns that will be perfect for it. But you rarely ever catch me just buying yarn because it's pretty and hoping that inspiration shows up later. If there's yarn sitting in my stash, there's a very good chance that it already has a job waiting for it. Now whether or not the project actually gets made, that's a totally different conversation. But I have a feeling some of you are completely opposite. So tell me in the comments, which kind of crocheter are you? Do you buy yarn first and then figure out the project later? Or do you only buy yarn when you already know exactly what you're gonna make? And don't worry, this is a judgment-free zone. Now, this truth actually came from one of you. I was reading through the comments of one of my previous videos and someone mentioned shawls. They were basically saying that shawls can be way more work than they look. At first I laughed, but then I kind of realized this doesn't just apply to shawls. It applies to so many different types of crochet projects. Have you ever looked at a crochet pattern and thought, oh my gosh, that doesn't look too bad? It's just a repeating pattern, it's only 4 rows, it's basically one giant granny square. It shouldn't take me that long. Then 3 months later, you're still crocheting that same project. Your hands are tired, you're wondering why it seems like the blanket gets bigger every time you work on it instead of closer to being finished. And somehow you're seeing double crochets every single time you close your eyes. Some crochet projects aren't difficult because the stitches are complicated. They're difficult because they're like a marathon. Think about temperature blankets, or king-size blankets, wedding gifts, intricate mosaic crochet, and those gorgeous heirloom projects. None of them are impossible, but they ask for something that's sometimes even harder than skill. They ask for consistency, patience, and to keep showing up long after the excitement of starting something new has worn off. This has been true for me way more times than I can count. Back when this channel was mostly about my crochet projects that I was making, I was always trying to stay ahead on my YouTube schedule. I would look at a crochet pattern and think, perfect, I'll finish this in a couple of days and then I'll have plenty of time to film a video. Then days would pass, weeks would pass, sometimes months would pass, and before I knew it, I wasn't even halfway done. It wasn't because the crochet pattern was bad, and it wasn't because I wasn't enjoying it. I had simply underestimated how much time that project was going to ask of me. I think that's something almost every crocheter experiences. Whether you've been crocheting for 6 months or 20 years, you get better at reading patterns and choosing yarn, but estimating how long a project will take, that skill can really humble you. The funny thing is, the slower projects have taught me something. When I was focused on getting videos out, I always felt like I needed to hurry up and finish. I was racing towards the finished cardigan instead of enjoying the time I spent making it. Now, I try to remind myself that the finished project isn't the only reward. The quiet evenings with my hook in my hand, the rows that become part of my routine, watching a pile of yarn slowly turn into something that I can wear or give away to someone that I love. That's part of the reward too. So if you realize halfway through a crochet project that it's getting bigger than you expected or taking much longer than you planned, don't let that steal the joy from it. Sometimes the most meaningful projects are the ones that take the longest. Just maybe think twice before starting a king-size blanket 3 weeks before Christmas. Now, this crochet truth might be one of the most important ones in the entire series, and I'm so happy that someone shared it in my comments in a previous video, because somewhere along the way, crochet stopped being a relaxing hobby and started looking like a shopping list. If you scroll through any social media long enough, it's easy to feel like you're missing something. Everyone seems to have the perfect set of crochet hooks, or beautiful hand-dyed yarn, or custom project bags, yarn swifts, ball winders, blocking mats, and every new crochet gadget that hits the market. And suddenly it starts to feel like you need all of this stuff just to enjoy the craft. But that is just not true. Most of us don't start crochet with a fully stocked studio or expensive tools, and some of us never get there. A lot of the most beautiful handmade blankets, sweaters, and heirloom crochet projects were created with nothing more than a basic yarn and one hook, and they still turned out amazing. Now, I've said this before on my channel, and I'll still stand by it. I'm very much a minimalist when it comes to crochet supplies. I've never felt the need to turn my space into a yarn shop wall or collect every single crochet tool just because it exists. The tools that I use are the ones that I actually reach for. And honestly, I can't even tell you the last time I bought a new crochet gadget just for the sake of having it. There's even a video on my YouTube channel where I talk about crochet and knitting tools that I don't think you actually need. And I still feel the same way today. A lot of what gets marketed to us is for convenience or aesthetics, not necessity. So when I saw this crochet truth come up in my comments, and so many of you are agreeing with it, it really stood out to me because it means a lot of crocheters are feeling the same pressure to keep up. And I just want to say this gently. Crochet is not supposed to put you in debt. It's a creative hobby. It's supposed to bring you peace and not financial stress. It should feel like something that you can come back to after a long day, not something that adds pressure every single time a new yarn collection drops or a new crochet pattern goes viral. At the end of the day, your creativity doesn't come from how expensive your tools are. It comes from your hands, your time, and your ideas. If anything, some of the most meaningful crochet projects come from working with what you already have, using that leftover yarn in your stash, picking up a simple hook, and just making something because you enjoy it. So if you ever feel like you need to buy more just to feel like you're a real crocheter, pause for a second. You already are one. And if I can say it like a friend would say it, don't let yarn, hooks, or crochet supplies turn into something that stresses you out or stretches your budget. I can't think of a lot of things that are worth going into debt for, but crochet definitely isn't one of them. This is one of those crochet truths that hits a little bit differently because it's not really about yarn or stitches, it's about people. And I want to say this gently because most crocheters I know put a lot of love into their handmade gifts. Crochet gifts are incredibly meaningful. A handmade blanket, a crochet shawl, or even a small project keychain can carry hours of patience and time and care. But the truth is that meaning lands differently depending on who receives it. And not everyone is going to respond the way that we'll imagine. Some people don't wear shawls. Some people don't decorate their homes with blankets. And some people don't really understand how much work goes into a crochet project. And some just don't connect with your style or the colors that you choose. And that doesn't mean that they're rude or ungrateful. It just means that handmade gifts might not be their thing. I saw a comment that really stuck with me while I was planning this video, and someone shared how this crochet truth hit them so hard after gifting crochet items to family members. They were expecting excitement and instead got a much more neutral reaction. Not negative, just not what they were hoping for. And I think a lot of us have had moments like this. As crocheters, we can sometimes put so much love into the making that we assume that the receiving party will feel the same. We pick the yarn, the color, the pattern, the project with so much intention, but we don't always stop to think about the person on the other end, their favorite colors, their home style, whether they even use handmade items in their everyday life, or even simple things like sensitivities to certain yarn textures and materials. A lot of times we're just thinking, I made this, so of course they'll love it. But gifting does not always work that way. I think that part of growing as a crocheter is learning that handmade gifts aren't about convincing everyone to appreciate your work. It's about finding the people that already do. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is realize, okay, this might not be for them, and shift your energy completely. Maybe that means choosing a different type of gift next time. And yes, sometimes that different gift is something as simple and practical as a gift card, and that's okay. There's actually a lot of freedom in that because it takes the pressure off trying to make every single crochet project the perfect gift, and let your handmade items go where they're truly used and valued. I will say, this is a very hard lesson for a lot of crocheters. Most of us aren't just creating to create. We're creating because we care. So it can feel personal when someone doesn't react the way that we expected. But over time, I think it helps us to become more thoughtful with our crochet gifting, more intentional, less pressure on ourselves, and more aligned with the person we're actually gifting it to. Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't just to make something beautiful, it's to make something that feels right for the person receiving it. Now this one's definitely for the more experienced crocheters, or at least the ones who think they're becoming experienced until a pattern humbles them really quick. Because at a certain point in your crochet journey, something interesting starts to happen with crochet patterns. You might still buy them, you still support the crochet designer, you still love seeing a new sweater pattern, shawl design, or blanket idea come out, but somewhere between I'll follow this step by step and I know what I'm doing, the pattern slowly stops being strict instructions and starts becoming something else entirely. You open it, you skim the first page, and then you tell yourself you're gonna follow this exactly this time. And then 5 rows in, you're kind of doing your own thing. Maybe you're changing the stitch count a little, maybe you're adjusting the length as you go, maybe you're swapping out stitches because your brain already sees a better rhythm. And every now and then you glance back at the crochet pattern like, right, that's where the decreases were supposed to happen. At that point, the pattern isn't really even instructions anymore. It's more like emotional support paperwork. It's there if you need it and it makes you feel like you're doing things correctly, but in reality, you've already started freelancing the design in your own way. And the funny thing is, a lot of crocheters do this without even realizing it. I've caught myself doing it too, and I wouldn't even call myself a super advanced crocheter, but sometimes I'll buy a pattern, read through it once, and then just kind of go off memory and vibes. Then I'll check back with it later and be like, wait, what stitch was I supposed to be doing again? But here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. Sometimes we're not even buying crochet patterns just to follow them perfectly. We're buying them to support the crochet designer behind them. We see a design that we love, we appreciate their work, and we want to be part of keeping that creativity going in the crochet community. And I think that really matters. There are so many conversations online that try to reduce patterns to just instructions, but anyone who's been in the crochet world for a while knows that it's more than that. Crochet designers put a lot of time, testing, and creativity into writing those patterns. Supporting that work helps keep new designs coming. If we don't support the people creating within our own crochet community, it becomes harder to expect new patterns, fresh ideas, and inspiration to keep showing up. So even if you're not following every single step stitch by stitch, even if your version turns into a slightly modified, slightly improved version of the original, you're still supporting a designer. And in a way, that's part of what keeps the crochet world going. This is the kind of truth that brings everything full circle, because at the end of the day, the crochet patterns we remember the most aren't always the perfect ones. They're not always the cleanest stitches or the trendiest crochet patterns or the ones that got the most compliments online. They're the ones tied to a moment in your life. It might be a blanket you worked on during a hard season, or when life felt heavy and the repetition of the stitches was the only thing that made sense some days. It might even be a scarf you made back in college while figuring out who you were becoming, or a baby blanket that you made for someone that you love, or that very first sweater that didn't quite fit right, but you wore it anyway because you made it yourself. And sometimes it's even the ugly projects you can't bring yourself to throw away, not because they're flawless, but because they mean something. That's the thing about crochet. They hold time and memories. I love that about this craft. Every single handmade piece I've made through the years feels like a snapshot of my life. Some memories attached to them are sweet and exciting, and others are a little bit more complicated. But when I look at certain crochet projects, I can usually tell exactly what season of life I was in when I made them. It's almost like a scrapbook, but made of yarn instead of paper. A crochet scrapbook of stitches, colors, and half-finished thoughts that turned into something real. And what makes it even more special is that some of the most meaningful projects aren't even things I made for myself. They're pieces that I made for other people, like the cardigan that I made for my mom, or the sweater that I made for my oldest niece, or the neck warmer that I made for my dad. Each one of those carries its own memories, its own story, and its own reason for existing beyond just being a finished project. And funny enough, or sadly enough, they're some of my lowest viewed videos on my channels, but those kind of crochet gifts stay with you in a different type of way. So when I think about crochet projects, I don't just think about yarn and hooks or finished measurements or whether the stitches were even. I think about the moments, the people, the season of life, and the growth. Because the truth is, the best crochet projects aren't always the ones that turn out perfect. They're the ones that remind you who you were when you made them. This crochet series has truly been one of my favorite things I've shared on this channel. Reading through your comments and your stories has been such a reminder that no matter where we are in the world, crocheters really are more alike than we think. Different yarn, different hooks, different skill levels, but somehow the same struggles, same habits, and the same love for making things with our own hands. Now I'm gonna take a break after this video to recharge and work on some things behind the scenes. And if you're new here, this is something that I do regularly to avoid burnout and come back with better ideas, better projects, and honestly, just more energy to create. I take a break around the middle of the year and the end of the year, but this time around, a lot of you joined the channel recently. I didn't want to just disappear without finishing this series with you. And I do have a lot of things going on during this break that I am so excited about. Now, I mentioned in my last video that I got my grandma's sewing machine, but since then, I got gifted another sewing machine from my godmother's sister. So now I have even more reason to really step into learning how to sew. And someone from my mom's church has even offered to teach me, so I feel like this is the beginning of a whole new creative season for me beyond crochet. On top of that, personally, I'm going on a marriage retreat in July with my husband, which will be the first one that we've been on since we've been married, and I'm really looking forward to that time together. And also, in August is his birthday, so I'm really excited to plan something special for him. So yeah, there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes, and I'll probably be back sometime in August. That's the plan for now, but if anything changes, I'll keep you updated on my community tab. And I'll still be checking in there during the break, so you won't completely lose me. And before I go, I want to hear from you one more time. Which crochet truth in this series hit you the hardest? Or even better, what's one truth that I didn't mention that you think every crocheter should hear? I'll be reading every single comment, and if you're looking for more videos while I'm away, I'll link a few so that you have plenty of crochet inspiration, tutorials, and yarn talk to keep you busy until I'm back. Until then, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!